Hyderabad, India, to the Dublin Krishna Temple Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam discussion, Monday, 11th July 2022. Before we discuss on the verse from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, chapter 2, Canto 2, entitled The Cosmic Manifestation, chapter 1, text 37, let's sing Jai Radha Madhava. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana, Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Tira Vanachari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana, Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana, Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Radha Govinda, Radha Govinda, Radha Govinda, Shri Radhe. Jai Radha Govinda, Radha Govinda, Radha Govinda, Shri Radhe. Jai Nitai Sachinandana Gaura Hari, Nitai Sachinandana Gaura Hari, Jai Nitai Sachinandana Gaura Hari, Nitai Sachinandana Gaura Hari, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nittai Gaura Hari Bol. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Pravijagacharya Stottra Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। वृंदावन धाम की जय, मथुरा धाम की जय, मायापुर धाम की जय, गंगा माई की जय, यमुना माई की जय, तुलसी देवी की जय, भक्ति देवी की जय, सामवेद भक्त वृंद की जय। All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine. Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschadya Deshatarine. Sarvam Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Krishna Matirastu. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 2, The Cosmic Manifestation, Chapter 1, Text 37. Brahmānanaṁ kṣatra-bhujo mahātmā ūrur aṅghri-śrita-kṛṣṇa-varṇaḥ nānābhidhābhījya-gaṇopapanno dravyātmakaḥ karma vitāna-yogaḥ. Brahmānanaṁ kṣatra-bhujo mahātmā ūrur aṅghri-śrita-kṛṣṇa-varṇaḥ nānābhidhābhījya-gaṇopapanno dravyātmakaḥ karma vitāna-yogaḥ. Brahmānanaṁ kṣatra-bhujo mahātmā ūrur aṅghri-śrita-kṛṣṇa-varṇaḥ nānābhidhābhījya-gaṇopapanno dravyātmakaḥ karma vitāna-yogaḥ. Synonyms: Brahma, the brahmanas; Ananam, the face; Kṣatra, the kṣatriyas; Bhuja, the arms; mahātmā, the virāṭ-puruṣa; Vit, the vaiśyas; ūrur, the thighs; aṅghri-śrita, under the protection of his feet; kṛṣṇa-varṇaḥ, the śūdras; nāna, various; abhidha, by names; abhījya-gaṇa, the demigods; upapannaḥ, being overtaken; dravyātmakaḥ, with feasible goods; karma, activities; vitāna-yogaḥ, performances of sacrifice. Translation: the virāṭ-puruṣa's face is the brahmanas, his arms are the kṣatriyas, his thighs are the vaiśyas, and the śūdras are under the protection of his feet. All the worshipable demigods are also overtaken by him, and it is the duty of everyone to perform sacrifices with feasible goods to appease the Lord. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Monotheism is practically suggested here. Offering sacrifices to many demigods under different names is mentioned in the Vedic literatures. But the suggestion made in this verse is that all those varieties of demigods are included in the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They are only the parts and parcels of the original whole. Similarly, the divisions of the orders of human society, namely the brahmanas, the intelligent class; the kṣatriyas, the administrators; the vaiśyas, the mercantile community; and the śūdras, the laborer class, are all included in the body of the Supreme. As such, sacrifice by every one of them in terms of pleasing the Supreme by feasible goods is recommended. Generally, the sacrifice is offered with clarified butter and grains, but with the progress of time, human society has produced varieties of goods by transforming materials supplied by God's material nature. Human society, therefore, must learn to offer sacrifices not only with clarified butter, but also with other manufactured goods in the propagation of the Lord's glory, and that will bring about perfection in human society. The intelligent class of men, or brahmanas, may give direction for such sacrifices in consultation with the previous acharyas. The administrators may give all facilities to perform such sacrifices. The Vaishya class or mercantile community who produce such goods may offer them for sacrifice, and the Shudra class may offer their manual labor for the successful termination of such sacrifice. Thus, by the cooperation of all classes of human beings, the sacrifice recommended in this age, namely the sacrifice of congregational chanting of the holy name of the Lord, may be executed for the common welfare of all the people of the world. Before we discuss on this verse, let us offer some prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Nama Shreshtham Manamapi Shachiputram Atra Swarupam Rupam Tasyagrajam Murupurim Mathurim Goshthavati Radha Kundam Girivaram Maho Radhika Madhavasham Prapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Shri Gurum Tam Natosmi Vandeham Shri Gurum Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Adadandastridam Dante Idam Yacha Punah Punah Shriman Rupa Padambhojam Dhulisyam Janma Janmani He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 2, the Cosmic Manifestation, Chapter 1, Text 37. brahmānanaṁ kṣatra-bhujo mahātmā ūrur aṅghri-śrita-kṛṣṇa-varṇaḥ nānābhidhābhījya-gaṇopapanno dravyātmakaḥ karma vitāna-yogaḥ. The virāṭ-puruṣa's face is the brahmanas. His arms are the kṣatriyas. His thighs are the vaiśyas, and the śūdras are under the protection of his feet. All the worshipable demigods are also overtaken by him, and it is the duty of everyone to perform sacrifices with feasible goods to appease the Lord. So we see in this verse that Srila Shukadeva Goswami has been mentioning about the virāṭa rupa, or the universal form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the universal form is a form that the Supreme Personality of Godhead showed to Arjuna. When Arjuna was wanted to know the supreme universal form of Krishna, Arjuna actually wanted to see the divine universal form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Krishna actually gave him divya chakshusha. He gave him the divine eyes to see the universal form. So we see here that Even to see the universal form, the divine eyes, Divya Chakshu, is needed. What to speak of seeing the Dvibhuja Muralidhara Rupa of Krishna, the two-armed transcendental form with flute in his hands. How much more love one has to have for the Supreme Personality of Godhead to see his divine Manushya Rupa. So this is Arjuna, after seeing the universal form of Krishna, gets perplexed because he sees the whole universe, all the demigods, everyone at one place, and he actually gets perplexed, and he becomes a little bit his mind becomes a little bit perplexed and turbulent, and then Arjuna then requests Krishna to show his original form. So this is the transcendental form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Venum konantam aravinda dalayataksham barhavatamsam masitam muda sundarangam kandarpa koti kamaniya vishesha shobham Govinda puruṣam tamaham bhajami. This is mentioned in Brahma Samhita by Lord Brahma. The divine original form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. How is it? Venum konantam. So he has got the flute in his hands, Venum konantam, aravinda dalayataksha. His eyes are like the lotus petals. Barhavatamsam asitam buddha sundarangam. So he's got the peacock feather on his hair, and his complexion is like a newly formed cloud, that of the newly formed cloud. Asitam buddha sundarangam. Kandarpa koti kamaniya vishesha shobha. So this is the transcendental form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which attracts millions and millions of cupids. So Cupid is associated with, in the material world, it is associated with the attraction that one feels for another person in terms of there is as it is said, ahara nidra bhaya maithunam cha. So this maithunam, the tayor mitho hridaya granthi ahur ato graha kṣatra sutapta vitter janasya mohyam aham mamiti. So this is the in the material world pumsastri mithuni bhavametam. So that is the prime attraction in this material world is based on this bodily concept of life. So immediately when one takes birth, one immediately thinks that I am this body and whatever related to me is mine. So aham mameti. So this is and one keeps on adding designations. So this is upadhi. So therefore, the real devotional service begins when one takes away all the designations. Sarva upadhi vinirmuktam. So when all the designations are taken away, tat paratvena nirmala. Then one becomes originally pure. The original purity is already present in all the living entities. Nitya siddha Krishna prema sadhya kabo nai. Shravanadi shuddha chitte koraya uday. As it is mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita, that this attraction for the Supreme Personality of Godhead is already present in all the living entities. It's Nitya Siddha. It's eternally present. Krishna Prema. And it is a pure love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But how can one understand, how can one know one's Swarupa, one's original form, when one is engaged in pure devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Then one knows that one is eternal part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita, Mama eva amsha jiva loke jiva bhuta sanātana. That all the living entities in this whole universe are my eternal part and parcels. Mama eva aksha jivaloke jivabhuta Sanātana. Then why is it that the living entities are not in that state of pure love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Why? Because manaha shashtani indriyani prakritisthani karshati. When there is identification with the mind and the five senses, and the mind is called the sixth sense, shashtani indriyani, then there is prakritisthani karshati. Then there is struggle in this material world. Otherwise, there is no struggle. Mamupetya punarjanmam dukkhalayam ashashvatam napnuvanti mahātmā samsiddhim paramāṁ. So so actually there is dukkhalayam and ashashvatam. This material world, it is a place of misery, Krishna says, and it is temporary. But mamupetya punarjanmam dukkhalayam. So one does not get punarjanmam. One does not get another birth in this material world. Dukkhalayam, in this material world, which is an abode of misery and temporary. Napnuvanti mahātmā samsiddhim paramāṁ. Mahātmānastu mam partha daivim prakritim ashrita bhajantananya manaso gyatva bhutadim avyaya. So this is the Mahātmā, the great soul. So here it is mentioned here. The word mahātmā is also mentioned here. Brahmānanaṁ kṣatra-bhujo mahātmā. So here the Mahātmā is being referred to for the virāṭ-puruṣa, for the universal form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But in that verse which we were discussing, this bhajan tananyo manaso gyatva mahātmānastu mam partha daivim prakritim ashrita. So the person, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So then when there is a protection of divine energy, what is happening? Bhajant ananya manaso. Then one is constantly engaged in loving devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Why? Because gyatva bhutadim avyayam. Because one knows fully that Krishna is the source of everyone. Aham sarvasya prabho matta sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvita. So when one understands that everything is coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, aham sarvasya matta iti matva, when one knows this in truth, evam yoveti tatvata janma karmam cha me divyam evam yoveti tatvata tyaktva deham punarjanmam naiti mameti so Arjuna. So as Krishna mentions to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita, that when one knows about Krishna's birth and activities, everything is divyam, divine, transcendental. When one knows this, evam yoveti tatvata, in truth, then tyaktva deham punarjanmam naiti. After giving up this body, one does not get another body, material body. And what happens to such a person? Mam eti so Arjuna. So Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita that such a person comes back to me, O Arjuna. So when we are trying to understand this particular verse, which is describing the virāṭ-puruṣa, the universal form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one has to understand that this is the beginning of understanding of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When we are understanding the universal form. So, vadanti tat tattvavidas tattvam yadjnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti shabdyate. So there are three different stages of transcendental realization, which is advayam. It is non-different. But then, even though it is non-different, the level of involvement in terms of one's interaction with the Supreme Personality of Godhead keeps on increasing in these three different stages. And at the end of the day, we were discussing about this sarvopadhi vinirmuktam, and we are saying that we're taking off all the designations. Then we are becoming pure, tatparatvena nirmalam. Then what is happening? The third step. The first step is getting rid of all the designations. And it is not easy in this material world, as we know, because material world is a place of designation. Without designation, the material world does not exist. So a person gets birth, and immediately there is a designation for the person. So there is a name that is given to the person, and that name is given to that body. It's not the name is not for the for the real person within the body. It is for the body, and that body itself is a designation. When there is body, material body, there is everything related to the material body. Then there is the name, then there is the family, then there is the relatives, then there is the friends, and person grows up, gets education, the degree is added, one gets lots of prefixes and suffixes are added to the names. And then it's only not just the name, but there is prefix and suffixes as well. So it's all designation. So innumerable designations in this material world. And the first step itself is very difficult step, sarva upadhi vinirmuktam. But what helps in sarva upadhi vinirmuktam? Hrishikena hrishikesha sevanam. When the senses are engaged in the service of the master of the senses. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna, his another name is Hrishikesha. Hrishik Esha. Isha. Hrishik plus Isha. Hrishik is the senses and Isha is the master, the Lord. So Krishna is the Lord of the senses. Hrishikena, Hrishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchade. So when the senses are naturally engaged in the service of the Lord of the senses, then one gets into the state of purity. Shrinvata Shraddhaya Nityam Granantascha Swacheshtitam Kalena Na Ati Dirghena Bhagavan Vishate Hridi. So there is this beautiful verse in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam where it is mentioned that when one is hearing Shrinvata Shraddhaya Nityam, so when one is hearing about the Supreme Personality of Godhead with total faith, Shraddhaya Nityam, constantly. Constantly is a very difficult thing to practice, but as much as constant. If one is doing that, Shrinvata Shraddhaya Nityam, Granantascha Swacheshtitam. So one is remembering the Lord, always trying to remember the Lord. Kalena na ati dirghena Bhagavan Vishate Hridi. So very, very soon, it's not going to take a lot of time. Very soon. Kalena na ati dirghena Bhagavan Vishate Hridi. One realizes the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead within one's heart. So as Krishna says, Upadrashta Anumanta cha Bharta Bhokta Maheshwara Paramatmeti cha apiyukto dehesmin purusha para. So this is mentioned about the Paramatma, the super soul that is present within the heart of all the living entities. Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishta mattah smritir jnanam apohanam cha vedaisya sarve rahameva vidyo vedanta krit vedanta vedeva chaham. So as Krishna says that he is present in the heart of all the living entities. Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishta. And from Krishna, because of the presence of Paramatma, there is smriti, jnanam and apohanam. The remembrance, the knowledge and the forgetfulness. All the three different attributes that we have is because of the Supreme Personality of Godhead present as Paramatma. And what else the Paramatma is doing? Upadrashta. He is foreseeing, he is overseeing all the activities. So there is this verse in Upanishads where it is mentioned that there are the two birds sitting on the same branch of the tree. Dvau suparna sayuja sakhaya samane vrikshe vasanti. So they are sitting on the same branch of the tree. One bird is enjoying the fruits, while the other bird is just looking at the bird that is enjoying the fruits. So this is the overseeing of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Upadrashta, and then Anumanta. And then the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Paramatma is giving the permission to the living entity. Okay, then. So if some living entity is forcefully wants to go in the wrong direction, Krishna does not forcefully control that person. Because when there is force, there is no love. So in the contemporary times, they have this saying that it's quite an interesting saying. They say that if you love someone, set them free. If they really love you, they will come back to you. So this is what the Supreme Personality of Godhead is doing to all the living entities. So the living entities have total freedom. Of course, the freedom is within the purview of action and reaction. So one can never escape the action and reaction. Even in the look at the scientific example, the Newton's law, it says every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So it is spiritually true as well. So if one is Srila Prabhupada gives this example many times. He gives the example of, say, for example, there is a child who wants to touch the fire and see what is the fire. And if the parents are saying, no, don't do that, and then if the child forcefully does it, then the child has to suffer the consequences of touching the fire, which is that getting the burn. Whatever is the type of the fire, the type of the burn will be in the same way. So this is an example that Srila Prabhupada gives in terms of understanding that that is this karma, akarma, and vikarma. Krishna actually mentions about this. Karmanyo hi bodhavyam cha karmana, vikarmanas cha bodhavyam, gahno hi karmana gati. So Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita that one has to know what is karma, one has to know what is akarma, and one has to know what is vikarma. So there are the three different types. So the karma is that fruitive activities, the engagement in fruitive activities. So one is engaged in pious activities so that one can get back pious credits in return. And enjoy in this material world and then go to heavenly planets and enjoy more there. So that's why bhukti mukti siddhi kami sakale ashanta Krishna bhakta nishkama ateva shanta. So it is mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita that if someone is running after the fruitive activities, that is called bhukti. The fruitive activities, that is the sense enjoyment. So if one is running after the sense enjoyment, what is happening? So it is mentioned, yastadagre vishamiva pariname amritopamam tat sukham satvikam proktam atma-jnana prasadaja. So there is, when there is sense gratification, fruitive activities involved, that is actually, initially it feels like a nectar. But then in the end, it is like a poison. The example, whatever nice thing that we enjoy with the senses, if we overindulge in that enjoyment, what is going to happen when we overindulge our senses? In the end, it feels very strange. One is not satisfied. And then one again goes into that cycle. There is a wonderful example that is given where one says that, if, say, for example, if one is staying in a place where it is very hot and one is sitting under the shade of a cool tree. So if one goes out of the tree, one gets that heat again. But if one does not go out of the tree, one is always in that cool, shady place under the shelter of that tree. So this is what happens in the conditioned state of existence. So the conditioned state of existence, so apuryamanam achalam pratishtam samudram apa pravishanti yadvat tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve sa shantim apnoti na kamakami. So it is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita by Krishna that, but it is, so apuryamanam achalam pratishtam samudram apa pravishanti yadvat. So we see that the water keeps on coming. The water from all the rivers are merging into the ocean. Okay, so this is what is the state of, in the conditioned state. What is happening is there are so many sensual attractions that a person is getting through the senses, and one gets dragged away. Each sense is dragging away a person in that particular direction, and the mind, wherever the mind goes, all the senses will go as well. So mind is the master of the senses, basically. And if the master of the senses is engaged in the real master of the senses, which is Krishna, so then savai mana Krishna padaravindeyo vachamsi vaikunta gunanu varnane karo harer mandiram marjanadishu shrutim chakara achyuta satkatodaya mukunda lingalaya darshane drisho tadbritya gatra sparshanga sangamamam granam ja tatpada saroja saurabham Śrīmad-Tulasyaṁ rasanam tadarpite. So this is mentioned about Sri Kulashekara, the emperor Alvar. He is. So this is it's actually mentioned about Maharaj Ambarisha. So Ambarisha, his mind is always engaged in the lotus feet of the Lord. Savai mana Krishna padaravinde. And whatever is speaking, vachamsi vaikunta gunanu varnane. Whatever talks he is talking, it is always about the transcendental qualities of the spiritual world. Karo harer mandiram arjanadishu. Hands are always engaged in cleaning the temple. Shrutim chakara achyuta satkatodaya. And the ears are engaged in hearing about the Supreme Personality of God. Mukunda lingalaya darshane drisho. His eyes are engaged in seeing the divine forms of the Supreme Personality of God. Tadbritya gatra sparsha anga sangamam. His sense of touch is engaged in touching the devotees of the Lord. Granam cha tatpaja saroja saurabhe. His nostrils are engaged in smelling the flowers that are offered to the lotus feet of the Lord. Śrīmad-Tulasyaṁ rasanam tadarpite. His tongue is engaged in tasting the food that is offered to the Lord with tulsi. Then padau hari-kṣatra-padanu sarpane. His legs are engaged in walking the places, holy places of pilgrimage. Shiro Hrishikesha padabhivandane. His head is engaged in bowing down to the lotus feet of the Lord. Kamam tu dasye nacha kama kamyaya yatho tamashloka janashrayarati. So this is, so his whatever kamam, whatever desires he has, it is kamam cha dasye natu kama kamyaya. Whatever desires he has, it is being engaged in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Natu kama kamyaya, not for the sense gratification. Yatho uttama shloka janashrayarati. So this is the Uttama Shloka. So Krishna's another name is, he is worshipped through transcendental verses, the divine transcendental verses. Uttama Shloka Gunanu Varmanam. Idam hi pumsa tapasa shrutasya va sviktasya suktasya cha buddhidatayo avichyuta artha kavibhir niropita yad uttama shloka gunanu varmanam. So this is mentioned by Srila Narada Muni that whatever one is doing, idam hi pumsa tapasa shrutasya va sviktasya suktasya cha buddhidatayo. Whatever intelligence, whatever engagement one is doing, avichyuta artha kavibhir niropita. It should be engaged in the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of God. And what kind of satisfaction? By doing yad uttama shloka gunanu varmanam. That is, being engaged in glorifying the transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is glorified by the transcendental divine verses, uttama shloka. So when we look into this verse, Srila Prabhupada actually mentions that this verse is actually suggesting the monotheism, because it is being said that that one universal form of the Lord has all the demigods in it. So there is this beautiful verse in the scriptures which says, Akashat patitam toyam sagaram pratigachati sarvadeva namaskaram keshavam pratigachati. So what it means is that when the water is falling from the sky, all the water is going into the ponds, rivers, and then finally it is going into the ocean. Akashat patitam toyam sagaram pratigachati sarvadeva namaskaram keshavam pratigachati. Similarly, when one is praying to all the different demigods, that prayer is finally going to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Ante Narayana Smriti. So this is the remembrance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yatha tarora mula nishechanena strityanti tatskanda-bhujo pashaka pranopadhara shaitendriyanam tatha sarvarhanam achyutecha. This is another verse in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam where it is mentioned that so if you want to nourish the tree, we nourish the root of the tree. We don't nourish the leaves, twigs, and branches. We just nourish the root of the tree, and automatically the whole tree gets nourished. And if you want to nourish the body, the final destination for the food is in the stomach. And then once it goes into the stomach, the nourishment spreads over the whole body. So this is the Yatha taroramula nishechanena triptyanti tatskanda-bhujo pashaka pranopahara chaitendriyana tatha sarvarhanam achyutecha. So similarly, when one is rendering loving devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, automatically everyone is satisfied. So this is the transcendental position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is so either one can try and satisfy each and every section, or one can satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and automatically everyone else will get satisfied. So klesho adhikaras tesham avyaktasakta chesasam avyakto hi gatir dukkham dehavadbhir avapyate. So this is so it is a difficult so when we are in this universal form, the challenge with the universal form is that the focus cannot be properly done because the universal form is so huge. The focus, so therefore, the real focus can be done when one remembers the transcendental form of the Supreme Personality. Premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena santas sadaiva hrideshu vilokayanti yam shyama sundaram achintya gunaswarupam Govinda puruṣam tamaham bhajami. So it is mentioned in Brahma Samhita that when one's eyes are anointed with love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena santas sadaiva hrideshu vilokayanti. The real saintly person is always remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead within the heart. What kind of form is he remembering on? Yam shyama sundaram achintya gunaswarupam. The form is that of the dark form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is divinely beautiful. Achintya gunaswarupam. And achintya, it cannot be. So this is the wonderful. This is what divinity means. The transcendence. What does transcendence or divinity mean? It means that one transcends the conditioned existence. So in the conditioned existence, one is not in that frame of mind where the total surrender is present. When there is total surrender, then one transcends. Immediately one transcends. How do we know that there is total surrender? We know there is total surrender when the mind is totally focused at the lotus feet of the Lord. Then there is total surrender. Man mana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mame vaiśyasi satyam te pratijane priyosime. As Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna that he says that give your mind to me, man mana bhava, become my devotee, mad bhakta, madhyaji, offer your prayers to me, offer your obeisances to me, mam namaskuru mame vaiśyasi satyam te pratijane priyosime. So Krishna says that you surely will come back to me, O Arjuna, and anyone who is doing this. And I'm telling this to you because you are very dear to me. Pratijani priyosime. So that is the transcendental position, that if the mind can be engaged somehow or the other, yena tena prakarena mana krishne niveshayet, sarve vidhi nishedasyu etayor eva kinkara. So this is mentioned by Srila Rupa Goswami. He says that some way or the other fix the mind on Krishna. Yena tena prakarena mana krishne niveshayet. All the other rules and regulations are subservient to this main rule. So when we are talking about this virāṭ-puruṣa, the universal form, it is being mentioned about how the head is the brahmanas, the head of the virāṭa rupa purusha, the shoulder is the kṣatriyas, the stomach is the vaiśyas, and the legs is the śūdras. So this is the virāṭ-puruṣa, the universal form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it is mentioned that all the demigods are also present within this universal form. And that's why Srila Prabhupada mentions in the beginning of the purport that actually monotheism is being suggested here directly. Then Srila Prabhupada mentions about how this patram pushpam phalam toyam yume bhaktya prayachati tadaham bhakti upahritam ashnami prayatātmana. So this is so when there is bhakti, the bhakti is the most important ingredient that the Supreme Personality of Godhead wants. Nothing else. Because he is actually the supreme proprietor. Bhoktaram yakitapasam sarva loka maheshwaram. So everything belongs to Krishna. Isha vasyam idam sarvam. Yat kincham jagatyam jagat. So there is nothing that anyone can give anything to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. No, because everything is his. So, but what can we give? We can give the love for. So this is, and when that love is given to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he actually says that he cannot repay it. Na parayeham nirvadya samyajam so sadhu krityam vibudhayushapiva ya ma bhajan durjaha geha shrinkala samvricha tadvas pratiyatu sadhuna. So Krishna mentions this to the gopis, that I cannot repay you. What is the reason Krishna says that? Because the gopis were automatically attracted to Krishna. Whenever they heard the flute of Krishna, they directly they left everything and they just ran towards Krishna. And they were actually householders. So this is the transcendental love that every living entity has actually. Each and every living entity has got this pure love for the Lord, which is totally unadulterated. So this is so there is this anukulena krishnanushilanam bhakti-uttama. So there is this where Srila Rupa Goswami is mentioning about anya abhilashita shunyam jnana karmadi anavritam anukulena krishna anushilanam bhakti-uttama. So this is another definition of bhakti, which is the loving devotional service to the Lord, which is anya abhilashita shunyam. So we were talking about this bhukti mukti siddhikami sakale ashanta. So we were talking about bhukti, the person who is trying to enjoy the material senses. So that is bhukti. So they are ashanta, they are not peaceful. Mukti, one who wants liberation, they are also not peaceful. Why they are not peaceful? Because that is also a desire. So that's why Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Mama Janmani Janmani Ishware Bhavata Bhakti Raitukitva. Na dharam na janam na sundarim kavitam jagdishram. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that I don't want wealth, I don't want followers. Na dharam na janam na sundarim kavitam. I don't want any beautiful partner. But jagdishram Mama Janmani Janmani Ishware. Birth after birth, let me be engaged in your loving devotional service. Ahaituki bhaktir tvai. Mama janmani janmani ishware bhavatat bhaktir ahaituki tvai. So this is savai pumsam paro dharmo yato bhaktir adhokshaje ahaituki apratihata yayatma suprasidati. So this is ahaituki, which is, it does not have any cause. Initially, when one is going to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there is this chaturvidha bhajante mam jana sukritana arjuna arto jignasur arthati jnani cha baradarshana. So there is one, if one is in distress, one is going to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If one wants wealth, one is going to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then one is inquisitive. What is inquisitiveness? Inquisitiveness is the understanding that why am I suffering in this material world? This janma mrityu jara vyadhi. So I'm taking birth, then why should I die? Why do I have to go through the diseases? Why should I get the diseases? Why should I get the old age? So this is inquisitiveness. When one is athato brahma jignasa. So now is the time to inquire about our original nature. That is possible only in the human form of life. Nrideham adyam sulabham sudurlabham plavam sukalpam guru karnadharam mayanukulena nabhasvate ritam puman bhavadbhya nataret sa atmaha. So this is mentioned in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, where it is said that this human form of life, nrideham adyam sulabham sudurlabham. So it is sulabham. Sulabham in the sense that sulabham means it is an easy way of transcending the conditional existence. That is sulabham. But it is sudurlabham. It is very rare. Human form of life is very rare. And it is like a boat, a ship, plavam sukalpam, and the captain of the ship is Guru Karnadharam. The spiritual master is the captain of the ship. And Krishna is sending the wind in the right direction. Mayanukulena nabhasvate. Puvan bhavadbhya nataret sa atmaha. It is mentioned that even after getting all these wonderful favorable circumstances, if one does not cross the ocean of birth and death, one is unfortunately saying atmaha. Atmaha actually means is one is taking one's own life. The spiritual life is being taken away. So this is the transcendental position. So when we come back to this verse here, we can understand here Srila Prabhupada mentions that human society therefore must learn to offer sacrifices not only with clarified butter but also with other manufactured goods in the propagation of the Lord's glory, and that will bring about perfection in human society. This is the there is this verse where it is said that one can samsiddhim haritoshanam ata pumbir duja shreshta varnashrama vibhagasha swanushtitasya dharmasya samsiddhir haritoshanam. So varnashrama vibhagasha varnashrama charavata purushena parah puman vishnur aradhyate panta nanyat tattosha karanam. So the real perfection, the real surrender happens when the varna and ashrama, the four varnas and the four ashramas. The four varnas is brahmana, kṣatriya, vaisya, śūdra, as it is mentioned in this verse, and the four ashramas is brahmacharya, grahastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. So when all these four varnas and four ashramas, when they are varnashrama charavata purushena prapuman vishnur aradhyate pantha nanyat tattosha. So this should be the goal. The goal of Varna and Ashrama is to render loving devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So as the Narad Muni mentions, Aradhanam yadi haris tapasat tatakim, Naradhanam yadi haris tapasat tatakim. So if it is, if one is remembering and rendering loving devotional service to Krishna, then what is the need of austerity? If one is not rendering loving devotional service to Krishna, then what is the need of austerity? Then the austerity is hard labor. One might be austere, but if the austerity is not helping one to develop love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then tapasa tatakim. There is no use of the austerity. So this is the etavan sankhya yoga vyam swadharma parinishtaya janma labha parapumsam ante narayana smriti. So the goal has to be that one has to remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If we can remember, then one is in a transcendental space. One is divine. One is in. So this is. Then it doesn't matter where one is. Narayana parasarve na kutashana bibhyati swarga apavarga narkeshu abitulyartha darshana. So when one knows, when one feels the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead everywhere, then it doesn't matter where one is. One might be in heaven, one might be in hell, or one might be in the upper varga. one might be in the middle planetary system. Api tulyartha darshana. Everything becomes the same for such a person. Because yumam pashyati sarvatra sarvam cha mai pashyati tasya ham na pranashyami sacha me na pranashyami. Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita that when one sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead's energy everywhere, so when one is seeing the energy, one is immediately remembering the person from whom the energy is coming from. So yumam pashyati sarvatra sarvam cha mai pashyati. I never forget this person. Tasya ham na pranashyami sacha me na pranashyami. Sadho hridayam mahyam sadhunam hridayam tvaham madanyati na janati naham tebhyo manaram. So the sadhus are always remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always remembering the sadhus. Sadhus do not know anything other than Krishna. Krishna also does not know anything other than sadhus. That is a transcendental position of this the loving devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is the beginning stage for someone who cannot understand the Bhagavan concept of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the transcendental divine form, personal form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For someone who cannot directly go in that direction, this help is provided in the scriptures, that one can first understand the universal form of the Lord. So here it is said the virāṭ-puruṣa. So as it is said, brahmānanaṁ kṣatra-bhujo mahātmā. So the head is that of Brahmana, the shoulder is that of the Kshatriya. With ūrur aṅghri-śrita-kṛṣṇa-varṇaḥ. So the stomach is the vaiśyas, and the legs are that of the śūdras. nānābhidhābhījya-gaṇopapanno. So it is mentioned that the demigods are also present within the universal form of Krishna. dravyātmakaḥ karma vitāna-yogaḥ. So one has to engage whatever one has in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and then that becomes the real use of whatever thing that is in possession. So this is the anasaktasya vishyan yatāham upayunjata nirbandha krishna sambandhe yukta vairagyam uchyate. So prapanchikaya buddhya hari sambandhu vasina mumukshubhi parityago vairagyam phalgu katyate. So there is this. So there are two types of renunciation. One renunciation is where one thinks that everything is material and therefore rejects everything. The real renunciation is that whatever is the Lord's property is used in His service. That is real renunciation. So this is anasaktasya vishayan. So one is not attached to the sense objects, yathāham upayunjata, but using it as it is needed in the service of the Lord. Nirbandha Krishna sambandhi. How it is being used? Only in relationship with Krishna, to serve Krishna. Then that is yukta vairagyam. That is yukta. So Krishna actually mentions this word yukta many times. The yukta is that one is linked to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is yukta. So this, as Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita about this, where Maya sakta manapartha yogam yunjam madashrayam asamshrayam samagram mam yatha jnasasi takshunam. So when the mind is attached to Krishna, mai asakta, the mind is attached manapartha, then there is yogam yunjam madashrayam. Then one is surrendered onto the Supreme Personality, taking shelter of the Supreme Personality. Then asamshrayam samagram mam. Then one knows Krishna without any doubt. Samshaya is doubt, and asamshayam is without any doubt. Samagram, totally, mam, yatha jnasasi, how you can know me, tat shrunu. So that's why the hearing is extremely important in the development of bhakti. Shrinvata shraddhaya nitya granantascha shvacheshritam kalena nati dirghena bhagavan vishate hridi pravishta karna randrena swanam bhava saroruham dunoti shamalam krishna salilasya yathasha. So when one is hearing about the Supreme Personality of Godhead's pastimes and his activities and his names. Pravishta karnarandrena swanam bhava saroruham. So through the ear holes, when one is hearing, one is getting that love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the example is given that when there is rain, how all the dirt is removed. Salilasya yathasharat. So that is how when the transcendental pastimes and talks and names of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is coming in through the ears. Virāṭ-puruṣa Krishna pada moolam na vinchati mukta sarva pariklesha swapantha sharanam yatha. So when one is cleansed, Virāṭ-puruṣa Krishna pada moolam na vinchati. One does not leave the lotus feet of the Lord when one is cleansed. So everything is starting from Śrīmad Shraddhaya. One is hearing about the Lord with total faith and as much as constantly as possible. And this verse is helping us to focus on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The verse which is brahmānanaṁ kṣatra-bhujo mahātmā ūrur aṅghri-śrita-kṛṣṇa-varṇaḥ nānābhidhābhījya-gaṇopapanno dravyātmakaḥ karma vitāna-yogaḥ. So thank you very much for listening. Let me see if there is any comments. There is Indian boy Shubham, Jai Radha Krishna, Vikram Kashyap Bhai, Hare Krishna, Hitesh Dodia, Jai Shri Krishna, Jai Somnath, Samar Kundu, Hare Krishna, Ankit Radhe Radhe from Argentina. Hey Ankit, thank you very much for being here. Ravi Ranjan, it's your AK. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Thank you all very much for listening. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai, Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna, all glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna, all glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna, all glories to Shri Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namahum Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale. Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurani Pacharine. Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyada Deshakarane. Sarvam Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Krishna Matirastu. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.